before we start the video, I'd like to ask you guys to please consider subscribing to the channel and liking the video, as it helps the channel grow. So, let's get into it. Alright, welcome back to the channel, everybody, with your boy KT. Thank you for taking a little bit of time out your day to spend a little time with me. Today, in this presentation, we will be continuing our series on the MLB baseball divisions for the 2025 season. We're going to start with the NL Central today, and then in the next few days, we'll move on to the NL West. I'm looking to wrap this series up before the start of the official season, which is probably next week. A team in this division will be playing next week against the Los Angeles Dodgers. The Chicago Cubs will be in Tokyo, so I'm going to try to get this at least wrapped up before that game starts, but if we can't, that's fine. Official opening day is until the 27th anyway. But as previously mentioned, we will be going through the NL Central and ranking teams from best to worst in that division. The NL Central is one of the divisions that I consider the weakest in all of baseball, so this should be a very interesting video to talk about. But without further ado, guys, I'm going to shut up and we're going to get straight into the video with number 5. Alright, at number 5, we have the St. Louis Cardinals. And for the St. Louis Cardinals, they're a team that had a rough offseason, They're a team that's aging. They have an expensive roster. You know, they've lost people in free agency and via trade. So this is a team that is definitely on the decline as far as talent and as far as, losing ground in the division. And I'm not going to lie to you guys. They had a rough offseason. They didn't really get a lot of talent in the offseason. Guys like Lance Lynn, Kyle Gibson left. Paul Goldschmidt became a Yankee this past season. Andrew Kittredge left this year as well. Matt Carpenter, despite how old he is, also left. And they didn't really sign many guys to replace those guys that they lost in free agency. Now, that's not to say that they didn't have some free agent moments. They were able to avoid arbitration with Brendan Donovan, Ryan Hesley, Lars Nootbaar, and Andre Pallante, who should all project to be pretty good players. Still, in the case of Donovan, Nootbaar, and Pallante, still young and still developing in their own right. Now, the St. Louis Cardinals are definitely in a state of, not a lot of premium talent, and they're trying to work around some things here with this team. With the loss of Paul Goldschmidt, it's projected that Wilson Contreras could play first base. I said could. He probably will play first base this year. We'll see how that works. Wilson Contreras is known for being a fiery player, and even when he was here in Chicago, he didn't really even like DHing like that. I don't know how first base is going to work for him. I didn't see much of Wilson Contreras last year, especially with the emergence of Ivan Herrera back there at the catcher position. Mason Wynn is a young player that I really like at the shortstop position. Good fielding, average slug, but he gets on base pretty often. And has a 3.5 wins over replacement. They still have Nolan Arenado, a guy who's begrudgingly staying there. He wants to be traded. I thought he was going to be traded in the offseason. At one point, the Red Sox were a lock for him, but they went out and got Bregman. We'll see what Nolan does this season, but having an aging star in your locker room who doesn't want to be there, who's making a lot of money, and who's probably past his peak at this point, it's definitely not going to end well for the St. Louis Cardinals in that perspective. Aforementioned guys like Lars Nootbaar, Alec Burleson, Jordan Walker, if he's healthy, could be a guy who could play right field for them. That fielding percentage, though, it has to get a little bit better. Negative 2.8 as far as fielding. Victor Scott II will probably start in center field, and Lars Nootbaar will start in left field. Overall, I think this St. Louis Cardinals team is definitely suffering from the fact that they do not have top-end talent. I think their starting rotation is getting older as well. Sonny Gray, Miles Mikolas, and Eric Fetty are a little bit older in terms of, starting pitchers in the league. Not a lot of velocity, I would say, in this lineup either, as far as this rotation. I still like the bullpen that they have, especially the two top pitchers in the bullpen, Ryan Hesley and Matthew Liberatore. But overall, this St. Louis Cardinals team projects to finish last, in my opinion. I know Pacoda has them finishing 4th, right above the Cincinnati Reds, who I think are going to be a much better team. This team the Cardinals did nothing in the offseason. They're older. They've lost pieces in the offseason, like Paul Goldschmidt. And, this team is in flux, man. It's in flux. It's cheap. And it does not want to sign any top-end free agents. They got a star that doesn't want to be there. All that, kind of plays into a recipe for disaster this season. And I don't think the St. Louis Cardinals are getting near enough flack for how they went about this offseason. I think they should have traded Nolan Arenado to see what they could at least get for him. Now you have to probably wait until the trade deadline to get him gone. And we don't know what type of problems are going to arise in that locker room. They have a guy that's playing first base that's never really played there like that before. And I'm kind of worried about that now. I think he can play first base, but Wilson Contreras is more known as a catcher. Maybe you can stretch him as a DH. I don't know how he's going to be performing at first base. But, this team is definitely in flux. It's good to see as a Cubs fan, our hated rival kind of being on the decline. At the same time, for Cardinals fans, this is probably going to be a painful year. So just, be patient. The Cardinals will always find a way to revamp their team the best as they can. And, they should be back in contention very soon if they make the right moves. Maybe get off of Wilson Contreras and Nolan Arenado and see what you can get for those guys. But overall, I think the St. Louis Cardinals are definitely going to finish last in the division, in my opinion. At number 4, we got the Pittsburgh Pirates. And for the Pirates, they had a decent offseason coming into this season. While they didn't sign many big names, the two biggest names being Andrew Heaney and Tommy Pham, they were able to get off some much needed older veterans such as Yasmani Grandal and Aroldis Chapman. They also lost Connor Joe in the offseason, which I think kind of hurts them, especially in that outfield. But I think they have some guys as a contingency plan to take over for him. Overall, I think the Pittsburgh Pirates have pretty good talent on their team. I think this team is definitely going to be carried by his pitching staff, though. Paul Skeens, who had a dominant year last year for a rookie, is only projected to get better. A guy who can throw with a lot of velocity and a lot of break on his pitches as well. Definitely can see him getting much better at only 22 years old. I think he's definitely one of the pitchers, rising stars of the MLB, and he'll be in Pittsburgh for however long they want to keep him. And it doesn't seem like he's going to be slowing down anytime soon. Definitely a guy that I'm going to be looking forward to watching. Of course, they have Mitch Keller. I think a guy that people aren't really talking about in Pittsburgh is Jared Jones, another guy who can throw with tons of velocity and break on his pitches. While he hasn't had any star-studded years, I definitely think he's another young pitcher on the rise. And if he's developed properly, he can be the Robin to Paul Skeens' Batman in that lineup. I definitely think he should have a chance to compete for that starter 2 role, but we'll see. Their bullpen still being anchored by David Bednar, who will close games for them. For their lineup, I think there are a couple questions. One, can Ke'Bryan Hayes' offense come with this fielding for once, and can he stay healthy? A guy who doesn't generate a lot of power in his bat, but he has made some adjustments in the offseason. I think he can get a little bit better this season. O'Neal Cruz having a dominant spring training right now. Can he live up to the expectations that we have of him? As his ceiling is sky high, and he can definitely be one of the best players in the MLB. Big, strong, fast, kind of like an Ellie De La Cruz type player. Making a move to center field, so he won't be playing shortstop. We'll see how that works, as he's definitely not known for his fielding, but he does have a big arm. Brian Reynolds, a guy who's not talked about at all as being one of the better hitters in the MLB. A couple trade rumors around him have been surrounding him for a couple years, but the Pirates have been reluctant to move him, and I see why. They still have Andrew McCutchen DHing for them, the old veteran who probably will retire a Pirate. I think the two big questions are on the interior. Isaiah Kiner for Lifa. I think you can do it definitely a little bit better at shortstop than Isaiah Kiner for Lifa. I think first base is another issue that they might have, as Spencer Horwitz doesn't seem like he's going to be healthy to start the season. So that leaves DJ Stewart and Jared Triolo to start the season there. Nick Gonzalez had a strong year at second base. I don't have many questions about him, but maybe they could find a bit more depth at that position, as they have Adam Frazier to back him up. Joey Bart has found a place in Pittsburgh. While even though he hasn't lived up to the expectations yet, I think he still is young and developing. So this Pittsburgh Pirates team does have some pieces that they can develop and continue to get better. Overall, I still think they're a year off and a couple moves away from seriously contending in that division. I think the teams like the Reds and the Brewers and the Cubs are still a little bit better, especially with the Cubs and Reds doing a lot of things in the offseason. I think the Pirates are still a year away, but we'll see. This is a team that I definitely think could be on a rise in a few years, but as it stands now, I still have them finishing 4th in the division, in my opinion. At number 3, we have the Cincinnati Reds. And this is a team that I think people are really underestimating in the NL Central. This is a team that definitely got better in the offseason. They made a lot of moves, both good and bad, but I think they got a lot better with some of the moves that they made. They also didn't lose a lot in the offseason either. Now, the key losses were Jonathan India was one of the key losses in the offseason. They traded him to the Cincinnati Royals, but they were also able to gain Brady Singer, who can definitely shore up that starting pitching rotation for them. I also think they acquired Austin Hayes in the offseason as well, a guy that can play the outfield pretty well. Scott Barlow can, shore up that bullpen a little bit more, along with Josh Stalmont, who's signed to a minor league contract. They also went out and brought back Wade Miley. Brett Suter is now on the team. I don't think he was on the team last year, so that's a good one. And they didn't lose a lot. Now, they did lose Ty France, but he wasn't really playing like that anyway for them, and I don't think that's a big loss for them in that situation. Now, for the talent on this team, I think this team is definitely one of the better teams that people aren't talking about. A team that can take a big step forward. I think the biggest acquisition for the Cincinnati Reds in the offseason was the signing of Terry Francona. Their new manager is a guy who's always had success in the MLB, no matter where he is at. The Guardians have made a couple big playoff runs with Terry Francona, even making a World Series at one point. They've made deep playoff runs before, and he's always seemed to be a manager. No matter what you give him, he seems to make it work. And with this talented Reds team, I think he can definitely make it work with this team, so they can make a little bit of damage in the division. Now, their starting pitching staff is definitely has gotten a little bit better with the acquisition of Brady Singer. Hunter Green, who's now a starter. I don't think he was always a starter, if I'm not mistaken. I thought he was a closer at some point in the season. But please correct me if I'm wrong. I think he was a closer, but if not, he definitely is now a starter now. I think he's definitely a guy that people also don't talk about as being one of the better pitchers at 25 years old. Lots of velocity on his fastball, good break on his slider. So I think he's definitely one of the better pitchers in the NL Central, and definitely one of the better pitchers in the entirety of baseball, who nobody talks about. If he can stay healthy, I think that pitching staff is definitely one of the strengths of this team. Nick Lodolo is also the starter 3 on this team, as currently constructed. They do have some injuries already. Wade Miley, I don't think he's going to be ready. He may be ready, but I don't know. I think their bullpen is pretty good too as well. The aforementioned Brett Suter is a decent bullpen pitcher to have. They went out and got Scott Barlow. They still have Alexis Diaz to close out games for them. Emilio Pagan will be the setup man probably for Alexis Diaz going into the season. So, their pitching staff, while it could be better in certain spots, I definitely think that it could be a bigger strength for them this year. The main question is can this team stay healthy, finally stay healthy going into the year? The Reds are always one of these teams that start the year hot, but always seem to get hurt. Tyler Stevenson is back in that lineup. Spencer Steer, I think he's hurt right now, but if he's healthy, he's definitely going to add a lot more to that lineup. They still have Gavin Lux. They went out, got him via trade. Jamer Candelario will be playing third base. The aforementioned Austin Hayes will be playing left field. If TJ Friedel can stay healthy, finally for once, the center field position is shored up. Jake Fraley, again, another guy, if he can stay healthy, can definitely add a bit more talent to this team and to that lineup with Will Benson backing him up. Christian Encarnacion Strand, will probably be DHing for them, along sharing time with Gavin Lux at the DH spot. So this team definitely has talent. I think none bigger than Ellie De La Cruz out there at shortstop. This guy is an all-around player. Power, contact, speed, defense, whatever you ask him to do, he'll do it. One of the most entertaining players in all of baseball, in my opinion, and definitely one of the most terrifying base runners in all of baseball. Definitely a speedy player, only projected to get better as the season goes on. So this Reds team is definitely being slept on a lot. They have decent talent on the team. They went out and got Terry Francona. They able to get Brady Singer to shore up their pitching rotation. If this team can stay healthy, if guys like Spencer Steer and Tyler Stevenson and TJ Friedel and Jake Fraley can finally stay healthy, I can see this team making some noise in that division. And I think that them and the Brewers are going to go back and forth for that second spot in the division. But overall, it all depends on whether this team can finally stay healthy for once, as I think they do have the talent to make some noise. And with Terry Francona now coaching that team, I don't think you can ever count out a Cincinnati Reds team or any team being coached by Terry Francona. So yeah, I've had the Reds finishing third in the division, in my opinion. At number 2, we have the Milwaukee Brewers. And for the Brewers, they had an interesting offseason where they kind of lost a lot of talent in the offseason, especially big end talent that were key contributors to this Milwaukee Brewers team for a long time. Losing Devin Williams in the offseason, one of their best relief pitchers, to the Yankees, trading him for Nestor Cortez, who they acquired in the offseason in that trade. That's a big loss for them. I think Devin Williams is, as everybody can agree, is one of the best relief pitchers that you can have in the MLB. Him going to the Yankees kind of hurts them big time. They lost Frankie Montas, who, depending on who you ask, could be a loss or could be a gain, as he's already hurt with the Mets. They lost Colin Ray, who went to the rival Cubs. Gary Sanchez, he also decided to leave in free agency. And also they lost Wade Miley to the division rival Cincinnati Reds. They also lost Willie Adames, who was their best shortstop and one of their best players on the team, who had a huge year. I don't know where he went. I think he went to the Giants or something like that. Yeah, he went to the Giants. That's a big loss for them, man. That he was really, really good at that shortstop position. A guy who could hit for power, and a guy who's pretty good defensively at that shortstop position. Don't know how they were going to replace him, but that's definitely a big loss for them. They did add some pieces as well. They just went out and got Jose Quintana. They also signed Mark Canha in the offseason as well to play the outfield, and who can play almost everywhere. Manuel Margot also signed to the Brewers in the offseason as well. They replaced Gary Sanchez with Jorge Alfaro. So I guess, considering on who you ask, that's pretty much around the same production that you're going to get from Gary Sanchez. As I look at this Brewers team, I think the strength is definitely going to be their lineup, as well as I do think their pitching staff lost a lot of pieces. Freddie Peralta is still there. He's projected to be the starter 1. Still a pretty good pitcher at his age. Brandon Woodruff, if he's healthy, is definitely a better pitcher that people don't talk about. He's part of that great starting rotation when they had Corbin Burns as well. Unfortunately, Brandon Woodruff is hurt right now, so we'll see if he's able to start the year off, which is why they went out and got Jose Quintana. They also have Aaron Savale, who they added as well. So definitely not the strongest rotation, or as we've seen in the past few years with the Milwaukee Brewers. I think Nestor Cortez, they went out and got him as well from that trade with the Yankees. And I definitely think their bullpen definitely took a hit in the offseason. They still have Trevor McGill. They still have Jared Koenig. Joel Payamps is also there as well. Elvis Paguro is also there as well in that bullpen. But I just think the loss of Devin Williams is just going to be tremendous, man. That dude was definitely a beast. I'm glad as a Cubs fan to see him leave to go out of division and out of conference, or out of the National League, to go to the American League. But dang, he was a big part of that bullpen, and them losing him is definitely going to hurt them a lot. Not to mention they also lost the aforementioned Willy Adames and did not replace his production with a guy that can definitely produce like Willie. Joey Ortiz is set to play in that position, but I don't think he's no Willie Adames either. Overall, their lineup still has some pretty good pieces, though. They still have Rhys Hoskins, who they signed last year. Bryce Serang had a big year last year. Definitely one of the better hitters that nobody talks about, especially with his contact. William Contreras, one of the best catchers in all of baseball, in my opinion. 4.2 wins over replacement is only considered to get better. They still have Christian Yelich, Garrett Mitchell and Blake Perkins playing at center field position, who had big years in their own rights, especially Garrett Mitchell. I think, Jackson Chourio is still in that lineup, who is definitely a rookie that people were talking about, and who's one of the best rookies in all of baseball, in my opinion. So they haven't lost too much to where it's going to be detrimental to the team. And at the same time, you can never really count out the Milwaukee Brewers, as they always seem to find a way to either win the division or always be competitive. Now, as of the past few years, they have always seemed to find a way to win the division. I think this might be the year that they may struggle a little bit, though. I think this is the year where, they lost a few pieces in free agency, big pieces to their lineup and their pitching staff. And, other than, Contreras, Yelich, Chourio, and maybe Hoskins, I don't think they have a lot of talent in that lineup to make up for some of the guys that they lost. I really think Willy Adames, losing him really hurts them, in my opinion. But the Brewers are always considered to be one of the best teams in this division. It's a weak division. They always seem to find a way to compete. And with the Chicago Cubs not being the big time spenders, they can always find a way to win the division. At the same time, I do think some teams got better while they got a little bit worse. I think the Cubs got a lot better, and I also think the Reds got a lot better as well, and I think they're going to be going back and forth with them. So it's going to be a dogfight for that division going into the year, but I definitely think the Milwaukee Brewers, with the losses that they attained in the offseason, losing Willy Adames, losing Devin Williams, that third base position is definitely one to be desired, especially as far as hitting wise. I definitely think that they'll be a team that will still finish above average, but definitely won't just outright win the division like they have been doing in the past few years. And at number 1, I have the Chicago Cubs finishing first in the NL Central. Now, you're probably going to say that's biased because I am a Cubs fan and I do like the Cubs and I like watching them. So, of course, I'm going to say that the Cubs are going to win the division this season. But I do think the Cubs, in all honesty, made a lot of moves, and this is what Pacoda's projections have them doing as well. And I think they are the clear best team in the NL Central. While they didn't make, the top end moves, they didn't go out and get a big name free agent. They made a lot of good moves via trade as well. Now, obviously the biggest loss for the Chicago Cubs has been the loss of Cody Bellinger, who jumped ship to New York this offseason to the Yankees. But they replaced him big time. They replaced him big time with a guy named Kyle Tucker from the Houston Astros, who's considered one of the better right fielders or outfielders in the entire league. They traded away Isaac Paredes. Unfortunately, Cam Smith had to go in that deal as well, and they also traded away Hayden Westinski, but you're getting one of the best hitters in the MLB. They also went out and traded for Ryan Presley to shore up that closing pitcher role in their bullpen. They did lose Kyle Hendricks, so they replaced him with Matthew Boyd and Colin Ray. So this is a team that did make some moves in the offseason. They also signed Justin Turner in the offseason to shore up that third base position. And if you look at the Chicago Cubs roster, I think their strength is definitely going to be in their deep, top end pitching staff, with Shota Imanaga leading the way as probably their starter one as season start. when they play the Los Angeles Dodgers in Japan. Justin Steele will follow him up, a guy that can easily take over that starting one spot, who was a Cy Young candidate a couple of years ago, if I'm not mistaken, but has definitely been one of the most solid pitchers that people don't talk about enough. If Jameson Taillon can stay healthy for the entire year, he had a better year last year, especially early in the year when Steele and when Steele was off. Matthew Boyd, they went out and signed him. While it's a guy that suffers from injuries a lot and may not play a lot of games, he definitely is a talented pitcher in his own right, so that shores up that starter 4 role. After that you kind of get guys like Jordan Wicks, Javier Assad, Colin Ray, and Ben Brown, who can definitely play that starter 5 role. If you ask me, I'd rather have Ben Brown in that starter 5 role. Moving on to the bullpen, they signed Caleb Thielbar. They're getting back Julian Merriweather. They went out and signed Nate Pearson. Ryan Presley. They went out and signed Ryan Brazier. So while their bullpen isn't filled with top-end relief pitchers, I do think the addition of Ryan Presley should take a bit of pressure off of Porter Hodge to close games, and maybe he can be put in a different role going into the season. I think their lineup does feature some good names. Ian Happ, still one of the most consistent players on the team. They went out and signed Kyle Tucker, who's one of the best hitters in all of baseball, in my opinion. Seiya Suzuki, who's probably going to be DHing for them to start the year. Definitely one of the best hitters in all of baseball if he can stay healthy. Kind of bad in the field, but when he gets that bat on the ball, good things usually happen. I think the main question marks is, what are some of your younger players going to do? And can Dansby Swanson and Nico Horner stay healthy and produce? Michael Busch is another guy that needs to show up this year and continue off a strong year he had last year. I think the main question is, can we get some production at a third base position with Matt Shaw playing there, and can Pete Crow Armstrong in center field, be the guy, be that prime center fielder that they need to replace Cody Bellinger. He has the defense, but can his bat develop and catch up with them in the pros? Considering what he's going through in spring training, I think that's definitely not out of the question for him. And Matt Shaw, can he finally take over that third base position? He has a lot of expectations on him. Can he live up to those expectations, being the Cubs' top prospect this year? Overall, I think the Cubs definitely made a lot of moves that helped them in the offseason. Playing in a weak division, just the addition of Kyle Tucker should definitely play dividends for them. We should see the results almost automatically, but we'll see going into the season. But I still think this team is a few years away and a few bigger pieces away from actually actively competing in the playoffs, being a World Series candidate and being a team that can definitely, make a deep run into the playoffs. They are starting off with an injury already, and Nico Horner may not be ready for the opening day, but we'll see. Overall, I think this Cubs team finishes number 1. I think they're better than most of the other teams in their division, and I think they made the most moves that will pay off long term for this team in this division, which is why I'm going to have them finishing first in the NL Central. But that is it for my NL Central prediction video. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Do you disagree or do you agree with anything on this list? I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider subscribing to the channel and liking the videos. It helps your channel grow. Make sure you guys hit that notification bell so you get notified every time I drop one of these MLB videos. The last division we will be doing is the NL West, so be looking out for that. Follow me on social media, as there's bound to be discussions going on just about anything on my social media. I think free agency is starting in football, so be looking out for that. I might do some videos on that, considering who goes where, so be looking out for that. But overall, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'm out. Peace.